So a couple of weeks ago, I did a video that was discussing the future of Disney Pixar, and because Wreck-It Ralph 2 has been announced, I figured I would do a video talking about the future of Disney. Now, I also did a video that was recapping the current Disney Renaissance, from Tangled to Moana, but I figured we're getting more Disney news, and this is a pretty good opportunity to make a fun video discussing the premise of Disney sequels. So let me give you just a little backstory about myself. I really, really love animated movies. Some of my favorite animated movies are the direct-to-video DC comic animated movies because I think that's where DC truly shines. I also love most of the Disney, canonical films as well, and a good chunk of their sequels. And we'll talk about Disney sequels in just a moment because I'll give a little history of the Disney sequel premise and why it stopped and I guess why it's starting back up. So I think animation is a living art form. It's a great way to pretty much allow the impossible to become possible. Plus, if you have magical films, it allows mysticism and fairy tales to really shine. I think Frozen is a really good example of that. A Little Mermaid's a really good example of that. Tangled as well is a very good example of that. So, I just love animation, but there are definitely animated movies that I am not a big fan of, like Shark Tale, Puss in Boots, and stuff like that. But I think that Disney is known to have some of the best animated films out there because essentially they started with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and here they are now with Moana in 2016 and now Wreck-It Ralph 2 in 2018. So back in the early 90s, I believe 1994 is when the first Disney sequel came out, and that was Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar. And around that time is when Disney also began to release the Little Mermaid TV show. Now, the Little Mermaid TV show, I believe, came out in 92. But either way, so Disney released a TV show for Little Mermaid, a TV show for Aladdin, two sequels for Aladdin, and also two Little Mermaid sequels as well. They had other shows. They had the Jungle Book television show. They also had The Legend of Tarzan, which I also really like. So Disney used the sequels and the TV shows to pretty much expand these characters. And I think the TV shows were really, really good. I really liked the Little Mermaid animated series. I actually really liked the Aladdin animated series as well. The Aladdin animated series was over 80 episodes, which is crazy that a show, unlike Disney Toon Studios, went for so long. And I think the sequels really helped just develop characters because a lot of the Disney classic stories, even though they did get the happy ending, it just allowed for that extra bit of expansion where you want to see more of the worlds. I think, the world of Aladdin really allowed for the sequels because, the genie had so many abilities, and it allowed just for so many interesting things to be explored. Little Mermaid, I think, having her have melody was smart. It allowed us to see what came after Happily Ever After, but the prequel and the prequel series, kind of let us see Ariel as a mermaid in her past, which I also really like. So Disney started off with all these direct-to-video sequels, and the TV series and the direct-to-video sequels at some points kind of were hit or miss. But I think most of the princess films are pretty good. I actually really liked Mulan 2. I really liked Cinderella 3. I also really liked Beauty and the Beast 2. So that's kind of what happened there. And then that section of Disney Toon Studios, went to, I believe, 2007 or 2008. So we haven't had a Disney direct-to-video sequel in quite a while. I believe, 7 to 9 years, which is kind of crazy that we haven't had a follow-up. Now, Pixar is, known to have, these follow-ups. We have Toy Story 2, we have Finding Nemo 2, or, Finding Dory. We have Toy Story 3, we have Monsters University. We have a good chunk of sequels out of Pixar. So now I feel like Disney is gonna lobby off that a little bit, or copy that, because John Lasseter, who's in charge of both Pixar and Disney, he's kind of bringing over the Pixar formula into Disney to give us more films. Now, Wreck-It Ralph 2 did pretty good at the box office, but it didn't make $1 billion. In fact, it didn't even hit $500 million, which is interesting that they're going to do a sequel. But I think because Ralph is a computer animated character, or excuse me, obviously CGI, he's a video game character, it allows for us to see many, many new stories. So the premise of Wreck-It Ralph 2 is Ralph breaks internet. And, from the image that I have below, we can see some pretty cool things where Ralph will go. We see Google with the umlaut over it, which is, Google. Then we see Amazing, which is Amazon. We see Buzzaholic, which I'm not sure which one Buzzaholic is, but we see Pictopedia, which is just Wikipedia. And then we see LubHub, which I'm assuming is a parody of StubHub. So Ralph is going to be able to bounce around all of these different places online. I'm assuming that YouTube is going to get a cameo. Maybe there'll be some more online gaming. I have a PS4. I use my PS4 quite a bit, so I think somehow getting into either PS4 with Sony And, Disney does work with Sony with Spider-Man, so they could have access to the PS4 somehow, which would be pretty cool. It'd probably require, some lawyering and some contractual dealings, but I think it's very possible for Sony to somehow end up in the film. And we saw Nintendo characters, so why couldn't we see, the PS4? So Ralph is going to break the internet. So that's a really cool idea. I loved Wreck-It Ralph, and I also love the fact that the movies that have come out, we have Tangled, we have Big Hero 6, we have Frozen, we have Ralph, and now we have Moana. Frozen and Ralph, which were right on top of each other and also both co-written by Jennifer Lee, are now getting sequels. Now, Frozen is the only one that doesn't have a release date, so I'm going to quickly discuss what Disney has coming up in their slate. So I just have pulled up my notes right here. So we have Moana coming out November 23rd of 2016, which is pretty cool. Then there's no Disney animated films in 2017, which I guess makes sense because they're prepping Gigantic, which will come out in November of 2018, and then they're also prepping Wreck-It Ralph, which comes out in March. So they have 2017 off, but they also have Beauty and the Beast live action coming out in 2017. So their fairy tale films, their live action fairy tale films, will essentially take over. So we don't have a release date for Frozen 2, but we also don't have a movie set for 2019, which is when I'm assuming Frozen 2 will come out. So I'm assuming that next year, probably around June, we'll get some little bit of information about Frozen 2. Now, there's Tangled and Big Hero 6 and Zootopia. Now, Tangled did very well at the box office, and so did Big Hero 6, and obviously Zootopia did fantastic as well. Now, Tangled is getting a television series, which I think a lot of people forget about, and that's why they're like, oh, I want Tangled 2, but I think Tangled 2 isn't even in the workings because of the TV series. And I feel the TV series, it's not going to be a prequel as far as I know. It's going to, follow the adventures of Flynn Rider and Rapunzel probably right before their marriage in the Tangled short, Tangled Ever After. But I think Tangled will serve well as a sequel, as a television series, because you get to see like little adventures as opposed to one grand big one. Because I thought Tangled ended very, very nicely, and it's actually a movie that I think doesn't need a sequel because it did so well. I thought Tangled Ever After was great because you just get to see their wedding, so it was just cute. So the sequel, God, I keep saying sequel. Tangled doesn't need a sequel. I don't want a Tangled 2, but I like the idea of the Tangled TV series just to develop Rapunzel and Flynn a bit more and to see them again and, have them do some fun adventures and maybe get some more magic in there. Now, there's Big Hero 6, and I don't think Big Hero 6 needs a sequel either, but I do think it needs something, and I think Big Hero 6 would do well as a television show. And this is what the Disney Channel needs to do, and it should not be on Disney Junior. Tangled, the television series, and Big Hero 6, if they get a TV series, should be on the Disney Channel. And with solid animation, and I think it'll do very well because I think a lot of people out there like these movies now, which is awesome. Animation isn't really known for kids anymore. It's kind of known to the whole audience. It's very much the four quadrants, and I feel that I would check out the pilot of Big Hero 6, the television show. I'm definitely going to check out the pilot of Tangled 2, or the Tangled television series, so I think that's on Disney Junior, so But I want to at least see what they have to see if they're just going to flop it or if it's going to be pretty good. And I have a feeling that with Tangled, it's going to be pretty good. So I think Big Hero 6 would serve well as a television show because, it would give the opportunity to develop the 6 characters even more. I think a lot of people want to see more of Honey Lemon and Go-Go Tamago and Fred and whatnot. The Big Hero 6 set up their personalities, but at the same time, I think we need, multiple episodes to really flesh them out. I think one movie for a pantheon of characters, especially when they're all superheroes and they're all essentially main characters, but they're not relevant to the plot, but they're not so relevant enough that they get like that development that you want them to have. So I think a television show would suit Big Hero 6 quite well. Now, Zootopia is Disney's second movie to make $1 billion, and I think a lot of people want a Zootopia 2, but I actually don't want a Zootopia 2. I feel that they should follow the same premise of Big Hero 6 that I just said and make a television show with it and kind of make it like a comedy cop show. And I think, again, it'll do well if it goes on the regular Disney Channel, animated with the same animation level, a little cheaper just because it's a TV show, but I feel that they can pull a lot off with it. So I would really, really love for Zootopia to go into TV and Big Hero 6 to go into TV. Now, Frozen, I don't think needs a TV show at all. I think Frozen 2 definitely should be a movie, which obviously it is, and I think Frozen 2 will be fantastic. Now, what I'm kind of hoping is for it to be focused on Elsa, maybe have her meet someone with fire power, someone else with magic with her to kind of, go alongside that. Now, this won't happen, but I did make a crossover video a little while ago where Frozen 2 would be based upon Rapunzel as well, and not so much Elsa and Anna and Rapunzel being cousins. Also, obviously, Elsa and Anna are sisters, but them being cousins to Rapunzel. But I think the idea of Elsa having someone genetically related to her with magic would be really cool as well. Also, if you look at the concept art of both Frozen and Tangled, it looks very similar, especially how they're all looking at a castle or a kingdom or something. So I really think that Frozen 2 could benefit well with Elsa meeting another female or a male with magic powers. But I think bringing in Tangled would be pretty interesting, especially since everyone was like, oh, Rapunzel's in Frozen, so there must be some connection there. So that would be Disney kind of doing some fan service. So Gigantic, I don't have too much to say about that. It's not a princess film like Moana is or Frozen 2 is. And I feel that it will definitely hit the 4 quadrants, but I just don't have that much to say because I think the concept art is pretty, but I don't know enough about it. I think it's sort of a pseudo Jack and the Beanstalk, but I think it'll be good. Just I don't think it'll have the impact that Moana and Frozen 2 and obviously Wreck-It Ralph 2 are going to have. And I think Wreck-It Ralph 2 is just so spectacular. I just love the idea of Ralph going online, and I really hope that we get some fun YouTube videos in there, or somehow Ralph just ends up on a person's vlog like this, and somehow it just ends up crashing it in a weird way. I just think that would be so funny. Now for the characters in Wreck-It Ralph 2, I want to see obviously Vanellope. She's in the concept art, so it makes sense for Vanellope von Schweetz to come back. As for Fix-It Felix Jr. and Agent Calhoun, I think they would do well in a cameo role, but I don't think they need to follow Ralph throughout the internet. I think that because there's so many other characters, especially with online gaming, that Ralph can meet, they should add some new characters, but not, overdo it like they did with. I don't want to say that they overdid it with Big Hero 6 because obviously Big Hero 6 is focused on it, but they should definitely follow the Zootopia premise and give you, characters that you kind of just get the quick little backstory and understand their purpose of the show, like Chief Bogo, for example, in Zootopia. So I think that they need to just introduce some fun characters and maybe not so much have them follow Ralph, but incorporate into the story, have Ralph meet someone who represents Google, represents Amazon, and then maybe go into a couple of video games and have Ralph wreck them. So anyway, I think that Disney is doing a very good job with their sequels, or with their movies coming up. I think we have a lot of fun things to discuss. I think Moana will be really, really special. I love the look of Moana. I think it looks so breathtakingly stunning. I think Frozen 2 will be another fantastic film. Probably of the ones I'm listing, it'll be my favorite. And I really would love for Zootopia and Big Hero 6 to go the TV route. And, I think that'll also just help with merchandising and keeping it fresh in everyone's mind. Because if people say, oh, there's a new Zootopia episode, coming up this Friday, I think people will watch it. I really think it will work, especially if you're fans of Disney. I feel like this is a show that people would want to watch. And then also, it allows Disney to, restart up their Marvel superhero shows again, which are interesting. Because Disney Marvel shows aren't, super popular anymore. Their movies are fantastic, but they're animated shows. I'm saying, not like the Netflix shows, but they're Disney doesn't have too many animated programs going for them at the moment, I believe. So I think that Tangled, Big Hero 6, and Zootopia would help them. And then also, it's basing off of these awesome movies that we all really like. So that is what we have coming up. We don't have any movies beyond 2019. Pixar has a good chunk of movies slated for 2019 that are all original titles, but we don't have any information beyond the fact that they're originals, and there's no sequels. That means there's no Inside Out 2, no Ratatouille 2, no WALL-E 2, no Up 2, but I don't think Up needs a sequel. So anyway, Wreck-It Ralph 2 is coming out March 2018, March 9th, 2018, and Ralph will be breaking the internet. Moana is coming out this year. There's a break in 2017. Then we're going to get Gigantic as well at the end of 2018. Then Frozen 2 probably in 2019, but it could be 2020. But at that point, it's going to be 7 years off, which is a while. So I guess with Wreck-It Ralph 2 coming out in 2018, it's 6 years later. So I guess that does make sense. It gave them enough time to develop it, but I don't think Disney wants to wait for Frozen to come out so late. I might do a top 5 ideas for what I want to see in Frozen 2, but I think a lot of you know I want to see Elsa interact with someone with magic, maybe see the original Snow Queen. Those are essentially the 2 big ideas I have for Frozen 2. So anyway, share your thoughts about the future of Disney in the comments below. This is essentially just like a huge news, or a huge encyclopedia video telling you what Disney has up for them. And I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about Wreck-It Ralph 2, because I think Wreck-It Ralph 2 will be a fantastic, fun movie. And I think, they're essentially going into the second part of their renaissance, which is pretty interesting. The first renaissance went from 1989 to 1999, and here we have it starting in 2018 10, and it's going essentially to 1999. So hopefully you'll keep going strong and be a very powerful force to be reckoned with. But essentially, we're getting the second half of the Disney Renaissance number 2. All right, so I am all done talking about these films. Thank you so much for tuning into my discussion of them. I really appreciate it, and I hope you all will share thoughts about what Disney animated movie you want to see the most in the comments below, or if you want to see one of these be a television show as well. So thank you guys for listening and talking with me, and we'll talk soon. Bye.